What's going on, people? It's Joshua, Future Filmmaker 3.4 Reviews, where I talk movie, TV, music, give you guys my review of The French Dispatch, or The French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun. This is a crime drama anthology film, written, produced, and directed by Wes Anderson, stars a huge ensemble cast including Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Lea Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothée Chalamet, Lena Coldry, Jeffrey Wright, Matthew Allmark, Stephen Park, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Lee Schreiber, Errol Norton, Willem Dafoe, Saoirse Ronan, Elizabeth Moss, Jason Schwartzman, and Angelica Houston. Yes, that is a lot of this huge ensemble in this 1 hour and 43-minute long anthology Wes Anderson film. This is the 10th movie by Wes Anderson, one of the best filmmakers out there, and one of my favorite filmmakers. And, of course, this is an anthology of 3 different storylines. So, let's get into talking about this. The French Dispatch is a love letter to journalists set in an outpost of an American newspaper in a fictional 20th century French city that brings to life a collection of stories published in the French Dispatch in its final issue. And that's basically how I can describe the plot because there's a lot to take in. So going into the French Dispatch, I was actually very curious about this, of course. This sounds like it's something up my alley about journalism and the American and French news. And also, I'm a huge fan of ensembles casts in movies. And Wes Anderson is a very well respected filmmaker. I've watched all of his movies in 2020, starting with Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, which I like, The Live Aquatic with Steve Zissou, The Darjeeling Limited. The Fantastic Mr. Fox is my favorite of his. I very much like Moonrise Kingdom, and I also really like the Grand Budapest Hotel from 2014. Isle of Dogs, while it wasn't his best, I did enjoy it. So going into this, I was actually very curious to see how this would turn out. Of course, along with many other movies, this was one of those movies that was plagued with the whole COVID situation since it did get pushed back from last year in July to this year in October. And of course, going into this, I was a little worried with the delay would kind of ruin my enjoyment of this. And going into it, I went in with pretty high expectations because I am a fan of a lot of this cast. I am a fan of the director, and here's what I think of The French Dispatch. Moving on right into the first positive of The French Dispatch is that this is a Wes Anderson movie. Wes Anderson, he is a very competent filmmaker and writer and director, and easily his visual eye is on screen. This is basically Wes Anderson going full Wes Anderson at this point. This is the 10th movie in his career, and he knows exactly what he is aiming for. He knows exactly what he is going for. Here, he's described this movie as a love letter to journalism and to journalists in the 20th century, centering on 4 different stories, and it has to bring to life a real scenario with the French Dispatch based on the fictional French city of Blassie. And also, you can tell there's a lot of love for the New Yorker newspaper. I've never read the New Yorker, but I definitely see the love going on in this movie. And a lot of characters and events in the film are based on equivalents from the magazines. And this movie definitely does know exactly what it is going out to do, and it does it in a way that only Wes Anderson can. He has a lot of creativeness going for it, and he knows what type of movie he is, and he has to take each of the 4 stories: The Cycling Reporter, Revisions to Manifesto, the story, of course, with Benicio del Toro and Lea Seydoux, where Benicio del Toro's character, where he is locked up and he decides to paint pictures of Leah Sedol and has a relationship with her. So that definitely does go into it, and of course, he has a visual eye for it. And the way that Wes Anderson has to go and tell each of these stories is very creative, is very distinct. Some people can say it's a lot going on with each of these stories. It only just a short runtime because the movie's only an hour and 43 minutes. But I appreciate the fact that it is a very short movie and it deals with a lot of anthologies. And add to that, he knows exactly what he's doing in terms of telling the story. Moving on into the technical aspects, of course, the cinematography and the editing, of course, is top notch. Photography is very well done. This movie goes through so many different color changes. Of course, going to black and white to color to anamorphic widescreen and full screen. It goes into so many different creativeness into it, and he excels at it. The editor and the cinematographer does do a good job at it. Not only that, you do have good production design, costume design here. It's very much fluent into the vision of Wes Anderson. He knows how to get the film exactly how he wants it, and it does feel pretty much like you're in this environment. Moving on to performances, it is a massive cast of actors, so I just went through the list in the beginning of this review. But some of the standouts in this movie, of course, were Timothée Chalamet, Léa Seydoux, of course, Saoirse Ronan, Elizabeth Moss, Angelica Houston, even actors like Jeffrey Wright and Owen Wilson and Adrien Brody and Frances McDormand. And surprisingly, Tilda Swinton. I'm not a big Tilda Swinton guy. She has a few movies I like her in, but this is one of those movies where I actually didn't hate her in. She actually did a very good job in it. But a lot of the performances are also very well good, and I also like the newcomer actors like Lena Coldry. She was also really good in her performance too. So the acting in this movie is all the way around, despite what you may think of the movie. And of course, it excels very much, and he knows what he's doing. He goes for it. Each of the cast members in this movie are very well done, and for each of these multiple different storylines, which is only 3 storylines, this could easily be a convoluted mess in the way of the cast and the technical aspects in the story, but it finds a way to balance it all out in a way that is very creative and very well subtle, and each of this cast does a very good job. And of course, I have nothing else more to say about Léa Seydoux. She was great in No Time to Die, and there's no exception. She is a great actress, and she doesn't have a problem with the scenes where she has to, of course, pose. If, of course, you've seen the movie, you know which story that is with Benicio del Toro, but she is a very capable actress. Just a lot of this cast in this movie is going for it, and they just all excels in it. Also, I love the score by Alexandre Desplat. The Alexandre Desplat score. He is a frequent composer and collaborator of Wes Anderson, so he definitely does go for it. And Andrew Rusburn's editing is very much there. So this is a very entertaining, very awesome, and very well created film that definitely does stick out. And visual wise, it does go for it. With the black and white situations, the color palettes, the way this movie looks, even in the animated sequences, I thought the animated sequences that they display in this movie are very cool and it's very creative. And it does go for it. It goes for it, and it's just Wes Anderson being Wes Anderson. He knows exactly the movie that he wants to go for, and he has to take all this big cast and of course this creative team that has his assembled and make this work. And the concrete masterpiece in the private dining room and revisited manifesto and the cycling reporter, all of these stories I thought were very interesting. But my two favorites were the Timothy Chalamet one, Revisited Manifesto, and the concrete masterpiece with Benicio del Toro and Tilda Swinton. Also, Leah Sedal was Of course, this is not Wes Anderson's best film. I do have some issues, of course. One of them is definitely where some people are going to have this issue, and I will say that the story is a little bit too shortened. So, of course, this is an issue people will have because this movie's only an hour and 43 minutes, and I did have this issue too, and I do wish the movie was a little bit longer to flesh out and see more of each of these stories progress. But I get what Wes Anderson was trying to go for. I'm just saying you could have had at least an extra 20 to 30 minutes. That way you could have been able to fully go more in detail with this story and go all out with what you were trying to portray here. Because I'm very much intrigued with the story. I was very much intrigued with it. I just felt like you could have at least went for a little more like extra oomph and a little more epitastic creativeness. And I will say the aspect ratio stuff, of course, this can be a little distracting, but I got used to it as I was watching the movie, so it's not just a minor nitpick. And I will say there are some actors here that they do get the time to shine, but I do feel like they could have a little bit more to play on in terms of the performance, because none of this cast is doing bad. A lot of this cast is really good. I just to flesh out the movie a little bit longer so we can get more of them, or do something in between. But also, I will say now that some people are not gonna like the whole Wes Anderson going full Wes Anderson here, because it does go into full Wes Anderson mode as we're watching, and it's not afraid to go in this scenario, but I will say some people won't like that. Overall, The French Dispatch is another fun movie from Wes Anderson. It's fun, it's whimsical, it's entertaining, it's stylish, it has a lot of energy put into it. This is, of course, Wes Anderson going for Wes Anderson. Performances are downright great from everyone. The visual style is entertaining, and it's a nice movie that deals with journalism and is able to tackle on different stories in the anthology film scenario. It definitely has a few issues with some of the cast being a little underutilized, and the aspect ratio can get a little used to get to, but I do enjoy it for the most part. It's one of my favorites of the year, and I am going to give The French Dispatch an Epictastic. So those are my thoughts on The French Dispatch. In the comment section down below, what did you guys think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Or are you somewhere in the middle? What is your favorite and least favorite Wes Anderson film? Of course, my two favorite Wes Anderson films are The Grand Budapest Hotel and, of course, Fantastic Mr. Fox. All my social media links are in the description box down below. If you like saying anything too, Cash App is in the description box there. Message me privately before doing so. Be sure to like this video, comment on this video, share this video, as well as hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get notified when new videos are up, because it does help with the views on this and it does help with the algorithm. And I'll see you guys in my next video.